right now, big tech is preparing to drop like $700 billion just to weave artificial intelligence into every single piece of software you use.
Yeah, which is just a staggering amount of money.
It really is. But at the exact same moment, hackers are bypassing these multi-million-dollar cybersecurity systems using the digital equivalent of, well, a borrowed master key.
Right. It's this wild juxtaposition.
Exactly. So welcome to this custom deep dive tailored specifically for you. We are pulling all our insights today entirely from the May 4, 2026 edition of Kinsoft Tech Weekly. And our mission today is to really tear into the hidden costs, the massive shifting alliances, and these structural vulnerabilities hiding right in the center of this current tech boom.
Yeah, because you have this unprecedented capital being poured into the physical infrastructure of AI, right?
Yeah.
But it's being completely undermined by back-end vulnerabilities in the enterprise software that we all rely on every single day.
Right. And we're going to look at both sides of that coin today. Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the security risks of our hyper-connected tech world, we first have to look at how the absolute biggest players are, fundamentally rewiring their partnerships.
Yeah, the whole foundation of cloud computing is shifting right now.
Exactly. So the Kinsoft brief kicks off by highlighting that OpenAI has officially loosened its exclusive cloud ties with Microsoft, and they're now live on Amazon's AWS.
Which is huge. I mean, that signals a major structural shift in how businesses are going to access these foundational models.
Because it used to be just locked down, right?
Completely. For years, the OpenAI and Microsoft Azure partnership was like the defining alliance of the generative AI space. If you wanted the absolute best model, you had to build inside their specific walled garden.
I am looking at this through the lens of historical tech shifts, I guess. It reminds me a bit of the transition from early lockdown mainframe environments to open server standards, or even just, the universal adoption of USB.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
We're moving from a proprietary ecosystem to this interoperable standard. I guess it's sort of like the early days of video streaming.
What do you mean?
Well, remember when every hit show was locked to one specific platform and you had to buy that exact subscription to watch it?
Oh, right, yeah.
But now it's like the exclusivity era is ending. OpenAI moving to AWS is like a massive blockbuster movie suddenly being available on all channels at once.
That makes total sense. And, what's fascinating here is why this matters from a purely technical standpoint for developers.
Right, because why is being on AWS such a game changer?
Well, it really comes down to friction and physics, honestly, specifically data gravity and latency.
Data gravity. Okay, unpack that for me.
So let's say you're a massive enterprise company, right? And for the last 10 years, you've built your entire back-end database on Amazon AWS. All your customer records, transaction history, operational data, it all lives there. But suddenly, you want to use OpenAI's models to analyze all that data. When OpenAI was strictly tied to Microsoft's Azure, you had to literally route your workflows out of AWS across the public internet into Azure, process the query, and then send it all the way back.
Which I imagine introduces latency and probably some really hefty data egress fees.
Exactly. I mean, every single query takes milliseconds, and those add up to real performance bottlenecks. Plus, you're paying a premium just to move your own data between competing clouds.
It's just clunky multi-cloud management.
Right. So by launching natively on AWS, OpenAI is essentially allowing developers to bring the AI model directly to where the data already lives. No more cross-cloud routing.
So it reduces the latency, cuts down on the architecture complexity, and just removes the friction of deploying top-tier AI.
Yeah, it transitions AI from being this premium add-on for a specific ecosystem into just, basic utility infrastructure.
Yeah.
To plug into wherever you happen to be building.
Which is amazing for the user, but that ubiquitous run-anywhere infrastructure, that cannot be cheap to build.
Oh, not at all.
I'm looking at the capital expenditure numbers in this Kinsoft report, and I swear they look like typos.
The numbers are staggering. I mean, the combined AI spend for the year across the major tech firms, we're talking Alphabet, Amazon, and Meta, is pushing toward $600 to $700 billion.
$700 billion. That's with a B. That is not a software budget.
No.
That is literally the gross domestic product of a mid-sized country.
Right, because they aren't just writing code anymore. They are buying physical reality.
What do you mean by physical reality?
Well, that $700 billion is going towards securing millions of specialized GPUs. They're designing and building custom silicon, constructing these massive data center campuses.
Right, the actual building.
Yeah, exactly. And outfitting them with specialized liquid cooling systems because these new racks run so hot. They're out there negotiating directly with regional power grids just to get the gigawatts of electricity to turn it all on.
Wow.
It's basically a modern industrial revolution, but it's happening in server farms.
But here is where I'm really confused by the market reaction noted in the source, because the Kinsoft update points out that when Meta announced their increased AI capital spending, their shares actually fell on the news.
Yeah, they took a hit.
If these companies are quite literally building the physical infrastructure of the future, and they actually have the cash on hand to do it, why are investors panicking and punishing Meta's stock instead of celebrating the innovation? I mean, isn't the golden rule of tech to build the moat before anyone else can?
It's a completely logical question, but it runs headfirst into the brutal timeline of Wall Street.
Which is what, next quarter?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the tension between capital expenditure, CapEx, and return on investment, or ROI. Wall Street loves a moat, sure, but they demand profit margins today. When Meta or Alphabet say they're spending hundreds of billions on data centers, investors are immediately doing the math on hardware depreciation.
Meaning those expensive chips they're buying won't last forever.
Right. A cutting-edge GPU cluster has a shelf life of maybe 3 to 5 years before it's basically obsolete.
Oh, wow. Only 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, so if you spend $100 billion today, you have a very narrow window to generate a massive return before you just have to replace all the hardware again.
So the investors look at that and say, okay, we see the astronomical costs. Now, how exactly does a slightly smarter chatbot increase our ad revenue this quarter to offset those costs?
Exactly. They want the payoff right now. But enterprise adoption of AI is actually moving quite slowly.
So there's this huge gap between building $1 trillion infrastructure and finding a business model that actually pays for it.
Precisely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is why this matters directly to you, the listener, because tech companies are not going to just eat a $700 billion bill out of the goodness of their hearts.
No, of course not.
That cost is going to travel downstream. The Kinsoft update warns that this level of spending dictates the pricing models we're going to see over the next 2 years.
Right. So we're looking at the end of the subsidized, limitless AI experimentation phase.
Yep. We're going to see aggressive paywalls, subscription price hikes for enterprise software across the board, tools that, integrated AI for free just to build user habits are going to start charging per query.
It's inevitable. I mean, the infrastructure is just too expensive to run at a loss forever.
It really is.
But this massive financial pressure brings us to a really critical intersection in the report. Because to justify this $700 billion investment to create that ROI, these AI models have to actually be useful to businesses.
Right.
And an AI model is totally useless if it doesn't have context. It needs to feed on a company's internal data to do anything valuable.
Which forces companies to connect their AI tools directly to their central nervous system.
Exactly. The AI boom is actively requiring companies to build these hyper-interconnected data architectures. Every single tool must talk to every other tool. And that integration explosion is actively multiplying the vulnerabilities highlighted in the second half of this report.
Yeah, this is where things get really scary.
The source points to a massive, ongoing cybersecurity crisis, the ShinyHunters Salesforce-theft campaign.
Yeah, this is where the physical reality of the data centers meets the fragile reality of the software layer.
According to the Kinsoft update, recent victims of this campaign include some major entities. Amtrak had millions of customer records exposed. Pitney Bowes and Vimeo were also hit.
Huge names.
But the fascinating and honestly terrifying part is how the threat actors got in. These companies were not hacked directly.
Right.
Their primary authentication wasn't breached at all. They were hit through connected third-party access to their CRM data.
Right. And we really have to stop thinking of a CRM like Salesforce as just a digital address book. A modern CRM operates as the operational hub for enterprise data.
Right. It's everything.
It handles billing, marketing pipelines, customer communications, and now it's the primary data feed for enterprise AI endpoints. To make all of those functions work automatically, the CRM has to constantly talk to dozens, sometimes hundreds, of external applications.
And the way they talk to each other is through application programming interfaces, right? APIs.
Exactly. When you connect, say, a third-party marketing analytics tool to your CRM, you don't give the marketing tool your actual password. You generate an API token, like a digital trusted key.
Okay.
That token allows the third-party app to completely bypass primary authentication and just pull the data it needs continuously, machine to machine.
It's like Okay, it's like building an impenetrable billion-dollar fortress to protect your most valuable assets. You have multi-factor authentication, biometric scanners, lasers, a full security team.
Right.
But you hire a guy to come in twice a week to water the decorative plants in the lobby. And just to make his job easier, you give him a master key that bypasses the biometric scanners at the back door.
Is a perfect way to visualize it.
The hackers, they do not spend months trying to defeat your multi-factor authentication. They just wait until the plant guy connects to a public Wi-Fi network at a coffee shop and they steal his key. You didn't get hacked. Your plant guy got hacked. But the thieves still get to walk right into your vault completely undetected because the system recognizes the key as legitimate.
And that token bypasses all the expensive security layers you put on the front door. This exposes the fundamental structural flaw of modern business technology. Because a CRM is specifically designed to integrate to be useful, every single one of those API tokens is a potential entry point.
Wow.
The very interconnectedness that makes these cloud tools so powerful is exactly what makes them fragile. If a hacker compromises a popular third-party analytics plugin, they don't just hack the plugin company, they instantly gain lateral movement into the CRM data of every single enterprise that installed that plugin. It's a cascading failure.
One trusted integration can spill data across dozens of companies, and the blast radius of this vulnerability is staggering. The Kinsoft brief proves this isn't just a Salesforce issue, and it isn't an isolated incident in the U.S.
No, it's global.
Right. This is a systemic architectural problem. They mention a Hungarian media giant that suffered a massive breach through similar vectors. 8.5 terabytes of payroll and financial files were stolen and leaked.
You really have to stop and consider what 8.5 terabytes of text and spreadsheets actually represents.
It's hard to even picture.
Right, because that is not just a list of emails. That is years of operational history. Millions of highly sensitive financial documents, employee salaries, internal corporate accounts, banking details, all ripped out through a back-end door.
Just massive amounts of data. And the collateral damage isn't just financial. The source also notes a Swiss radiology network that was hit by ransomware through similar vectors.
Yeah, that one is rough.
We are talking about deeply personal, highly sensitive medical imaging and patient diagnostics locked down and held hostage. And the recurring thread tying all these global attacks together is connected apps and CRM data.
The threat actors have realized that targeting the primary enterprise is the hard way in. Targeting the forgotten, under-secured third-party integration is the easy way in.
So what does this all mean? We have a tech industry demanding we connect everything to AI to justify their $700 billion hardware spend, and an ecosystem where those very connections are actively exposing healthcare networks and terabytes of financial data.
It's a massive contradiction.
How do businesses actually protect themselves without just unplugging from the internet completely? The mandate cannot just be go back to 1995.
No, you can't go back to pen and paper. But you also cannot operate with blind trust in the ecosystem anymore. This raises an important question about security posture. The core actionable advice from the Kinsoft source revolves around adopting a zero-trust mindset for your integrations.
Okay, zero trust.
It means staying patched, obviously, but more importantly, staying deeply skeptical of your own architecture.
Staying skeptical, basically assuming the plant guy is eventually going to lose his key.
Precisely. You have to operate under the assumption that your third-party vendors will eventually be compromised. It's just a matter of when. The source explicitly advises conducting a ruthless audit of exactly which third-party apps have active API tokens or OAuth permissions for your CRM.
Because API sprawl is a very real thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, a marketing team will install a specific app for a 3-month campaign, grant it full read-write access to the entire Salesforce database, and then completely forget to uninstall it when the campaign ends.
That happens all the time.
And then 5 years later, that abandoned app gets bought by some shady holding company or its servers get breached, and that trusted key is still sitting there completely active.
That forgotten app is a ticking time bomb. The mitigation strategy is active auditing. You have to review those integrations regularly and relentlessly revoke access for anything that is not mission critical today. You must minimize the machine-to-machine doors into your core data. The brief notes that if you have never formally audited your CRM's connected apps, visiting kinsoft.com.au is a highly recommended starting point to map out how to get that process moving.
It's the digital equivalent of revoking old building passes. But instead of stopping a former employee from, using the corporate gym, you are closing a backdoor that could cost you millions in liability.
It is absolute essential hygiene for this era of cloud computing.
So bringing all these threads together,
Yeah.
we have covered some massive structural shifts today. We started with the physical layer, the unprecedented $700 billion CapEx race to build the infrastructure of the AI era,
Right.
and how OpenAI's shift to AWS signals a move toward ubiquitous multi-cloud standardizations. But we also unpacked the tension of that reality, right? How the pressure for ROI on that hardware is going to force aggressive monetization onto the consumer,
Definitely.
and how the drive to connect enterprise data to these AI models is creating an absolute golden age for cybercriminals.
The ShinyHunters campaign is the perfect case study for that. Bypassing primary defenses by targeting the trusted API tokens of third-party CRM integrations. Ripping through Amtrak, Vimeo, and global healthcare networks, not by breaking down the walls, but by using borrowed keys.
Which leaves you with a very clear, immediate takeaway. Do not wait for a third-party vendor breach to dictate your Friday night. Audit your CRM's connected apps today. Find out exactly who holds the digital keys to your data environment and revoke access for any integration that doesn't strictly need it to function.
Yeah, you have to be proactive.
And as the source mentioned, kinsoft.com.au is the place to start if you are staring at your dashboard wondering how to even untangle that web.
It really is the only way to manage the risk.
Yeah.
But, looking at the sheer scale of both the spending and the vulnerabilities leaves me with a final thought I want to pose to you, the listener.
Let's hear it.
We are watching tech giants spend nearly $1 trillion to weave artificial intelligence and connected APIs into every single layer of our professional lives. The default assumption is that the future is hyperconnected. But as these API integrations become exponentially riskier and the financial cost of securing and maintaining them skyrockets, are we fast approaching a breaking point?
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. Will we soon see a future where major enterprises run the math and decide that the risks and costs of being hyper-connected are just too high? Could the next big contrarian trend in tech actually be companies deliberately disconnecting their systems, pulling their data off the public cloud, and intentionally siloing their operations just to survive?
Wow. An intentional retreat from the cloud, rebuilding the physical air-gapped walls because the digital API doors are just too fundamentally dangerous to manage.
Exactly.
That completely upends the narrative of the last decade, and it is a fascinating thing to ponder as we watch these tech giants build their massive data centers. We will leave you with that thought to chew on. Thank you so much for joining us on this custom deep dive into the hidden currents of the 2026 tech landscape. Stay patched, stay skeptical, and mind your digital keys.